In this SEO training, I'm going to show you how to use Surfer SEO to achieve perfect on-page optimization. So Surfer is by far the most exciting SEO tool I've found since starting back in 2013. Now, this video you're going to watch is from a real life SEO consulting session. In short, I'm training their in-house team on how to use Surfer so they can get better rankings and more traffic from Google. So make sure you block out some time to watch this entire SEO training video because I share some advanced tips throughout. Also, please like this video and leave a comment saying Surfer if you're pumped to see how to use this awesome tool. Let's dive right in. So you guys said you have tinkered around with this a little bit.
I have not. This is all new to me.
It's all new to you. Okay. Yeah. So just to give you kind of an overview, really this tool, its primary purpose is purely for on-page SEO. It's not going to do a whole lot of other stuff, but as far as optimizing a single page, this is really going to be the best that you're going to find at this point. And it just helps because, of course, you know, there are plenty of best practices when it comes to on-page SEO that you can follow. But it is nice to show like actual data that's telling you and directing you towards what you should actually be doing, as opposed to just following general best practices. So, and the thing is, like, every keyword and every vertical is different. So, you know, how you optimize one page in one vertical versus how you optimize another one in another vertical could be radically different. And so this tool basically just levels the playing field so that you basically know how to optimize based on that specific keyword and vertical. So that's really the value of it. So so there's some nuances here that we want to make sure I cover. So right here in the SERP analyzer, you can put any keyword in here. Now, I don't recommend putting the exact variation that has the most volume if it isn't a readable query. So like you could do STD testing Austin. Now that might be a keyword you're going after, but in natural language, that's not how people would write. And so the reason why that's important is because if you do STD testing Austin, it's going to give you suggestions based on that exact variation.
Okay.
And so if you try to do that within the actual copy, it's going to seem very unnatural and weird to do it that way. It's just not a normal way to speak. And also, Google really is at the point where it knows that STD testing Austin STD testing are really the same thing.
Gotcha.
So you're not really going to need to be that specific. Maybe back in the day that would be necessary, but now anything that's closely related to those keyword phrases is going to be pretty much the same thing. So that's why I always make sure that I do it in natural language. So let's just do Austin, or actually let's do a different one because I think I've already done that one for you guys. We'll do Chicago STD testing. Does that work?
Sure.
So you can select mobile or desktop. I'll typically I'll do one with desktop and then one with mobile. But in this case, we'll just do desktop. I don't know, what is the percentage for you guys as far as desktop versus mobile?
Like 85 mobile, 15 desktop.
Is?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's phones are like so personal. So, you know, people are I feel like they're much less concerned about searching for something this personal if they're on their phone. But yeah, I mean, like 85% of our sales come from mobile traffic.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's just do mobile then in that case. And then NLP stands for, I don't know if you know what that is, but natural language processing. So in this case, it's natural language processing. Doesn't really matter. You don't need to know the technicalities of it. But really what it's doing is it's basically analyzing the keyword phrase and pulling ideas that are relevant to that primary phrase. Okay. So like, for example, it may associate, you know, HIV testing with STD testing because those things are closely linked. So it really what it is an AI pulling these ideas. So you don't have to use this and it sucks up your credits, as you can tell here. So you don't always have to use it. I typically will, just because I like getting as much data as I can. But yeah, that's basically it as far as settings. Ultimately, you can choose whether you want this or not, and you can see the differences. But I would recommend it in most cases. So let's go ahead and create a query.
What are the credits again?
Yeah, so the credits are on a per keyword basis. So every time you run a keyword, like one variation, it will take one credit away. for the day. And then these are actually on the monthly basis. And the reason for that is because I think it takes so much processing power to be able to do that. So they're very for a lack of a better word, stingy about it. So yeah. So let's go ahead and check this one out. And this can be pretty overwhelming, Luke. So just to give you a quick heads up, it's going to feel like a lot. But as I kind of walk you through it, it's not too bad. So what this initial chart is just showing are averages. I typically like to just look at like the actual raw data so I can see. But really what it's showing here is just straight word count. And we look at, across the board here, most of the word counts are substantially lower, which the thing with SEO that's really kind of annoying that tends to happen is like we'll go towards one trend for a long time and then that trend will become void and then we need to like tone things back. So for the last, I would say prior to the last 2 years, the easiest way to rank was just to have the longest page possible, like the most words, like the deepest. And that worked for a really long time. But then all of a sudden Google started to get, a lot smarter. They started to realize that word count didn't equate to quality. So that's why you're starting to see a lot of pages that don't have big word counts ranking, because now they've basically figured out a way. And I'm not entirely sure how they've been able to do it, but they just know that there is a lot of fluff in a lot of content.
Right.
So typically what they're going to do is they're probably going to look at the websites that are most authoritative, and they're going to say, okay, well, if these super authoritative websites have this word count, but then all of a sudden this weak website has, 1,800 words, it's just going to be a mismatch. So really the takeaway is that we want to match whatever's showing on the first page. We don't want to go extremely above it. We don't want to go below it. We want to be like right in that sweet spot for where, for what's ranking. So that's where averages can come into play. And you can kind of, you can mess around with this and see the different things. It's kind of funny because, 1 through 10 has much less word count than 11 through 20 on average. So, it's kind of nice to see this with your own eyes and say, okay, well, yeah, maybe we need to cut the words a little bit. Now, the good news is you don't have to make decisions based on this little chart here. And it's actually kind of funny, just looking at the chart, you can see that higher word counts tend to not do very well. Because look at this, 31 through 40 have the biggest word counts, and they're not doing too hot. So just click the audit option here. And then what it's going to do is it's literally going to show you exactly how to optimize this page to a T. This first section here, show missing backlinks. This is basically just what would be called a link intersect in Ahrefs. I don't know if you've done that before, but basically what it's doing is just showing you the links that your competitors have that you don't have. And so, if Google's looking at websites and trying to determine, who's the best, and they see that, the first 5 websites have these links from really authoritative sites, and all of a sudden you don't, they're obviously going to pick the sites that have the better links ultimately. So it should be an initiative to try to get these links. Now, that's kind of what we're doing on our side. We're trying to get you guys these super authoritative links.
Gotcha.
But to be in, to put it in perspective, getting a link from Forbes, you're looking at $2,500 to $3,000 for one link.
Sure.
So, it could get quite pricey trying to get these super authoritative ones, but it's still good to, export this and then just have this on the list of targets, that we want to go after, or at least find alternatives that are close in the same authority ballpark. Does that make sense? Yeah. So now let's scroll down here. This is more on-page SEO based stuff. And honestly, it's pretty straightforward. It's just going to give you the exact phrases that it pulled based on the NLP and based on just the general keyword density. So right away, they're recommending that you add at least 2 to 11 of this exact phrase, which is Chicago STD testing. And you only have 1 at this point, apparently. And
that's really cool right there. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's why it's important that you put the phrase that's natural, because then otherwise it's going to tell you to put, STD testing Chicago 11 times or something like that, which we definitely don't want. So now one thing I will say is, while this tool is very accurate, it's not perfect. So sometimes it will do a crawl and it will crawl your page and like it will miss some stuff. But anyway, the way that I go about doing it is I'll do this report, and then I'll typically either export this or I'll actually just do this shareable link, and I'll send that to a team member, and I'll have them go through and do all of the recommendations. And then you can actually just hit this refresh button, and then Surfer will recrawl that page and then give you an updated percentages here as far as density. So that's kind of the cool part, is you can just make the changes and then see those reflected here, directly, which is really nice. So, and then one thing that's cool is they actually do sort it by relevance. So like they're going to give you all kinds of recommendations down here. Mm-hmm. Doesn't necessarily mean you should do them all. Like, sure. Hepatitis B, maybe that could be relevant, maybe not. COVID-19, who knows? Probably not super relevant to that page. But that is why they sort it that way. So, yeah. So you do have to use kind of your best judgment, obviously. But in a lot of cases, like, please call, like you definitely don't need to place that 10 times.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, do you have any questions about the density part?
No, that looks great.
Yeah. So it's pretty straightforward for the most part. I would focus just, kind of on this top half. And then once you get down to lower, just, use your best judgment.
Okay.
So that's kind of the first thing. And then this part is also one I really like. And I've actually seen direct results from doing this. So it actually gives you a range that you should aim for as far as word count. And so in this case, it's saying, 521 to 1072 is the target. So, you're sitting about 800 words above that. So I know it's super bizarre to think like, wait, I have to actually like delete content to rank. It's a really weird concept, but
it does make it difficult too, because like our markets the content is so similar. So like we try to like switch it up by putting more content on there. But I mean, if this is more important than having similar content, then I mean, we can definitely look into it.
Yeah, I mean, I would aim to keep every page super unique. So even if that takes you way longer to do, I would extend those resources out longer just to get it done.
Okay.
Because it's just going to be beneficial. Like I'll give you an example. Like I have a blog post that targets the keyword backlinks, which is hyper competitive.
Sure.
And when I first published that blog post, which was in, I want to say maybe 2016, mm-hmm. I ranked on the first page super fast, and that blog post had like 7,000 words. Like it was enormous, like stupidly long. I don't even know why it was that long. Didn't even make sense. But anyway, I ended up ranking really well, and I ranked for a long time, all the way from 2016 to maybe 2019, even into 2020. And then when those recent updates hit, I dropped hard. Like I went all the way to like number 15. I was like, what in the world? Because I have more links to that page than any of the competitors, like, all the other things checked out. So the only thing that I could think that it was, and this is actually with the new updates that I've noticed. And so this might be kind of something to think about. And there is documentation from Google about this particular idea, but I've kind of come up with my own concept of it. But just because you published a blog post that performed well at one time doesn't mean it should continue to perform well forever. And the reason is because when I published that blog post at that time and for the following years after, that was the best blog post and most in-depth blog post or page about that particular topic. But over time, as more people begin to compete for a keyword, your content is no longer as unique as it once was. Now, all of a sudden you have all these copycats who just basically take your information and then, recycle it and create their own blog post. And also what happens is authority sites that are much stronger than you write about the same topics now. So now they're starting to push you out too. And so even though their content isn't necessarily better in any way, they are just stronger. So therefore you're going to get pushed out. So the way to combat that, and unfortunately it's really annoying, you have to literally update your content on a pretty frequent basis to make it unique for that query. So for example, at the time when I did the backlinks post that, when it had its initial phase, it was all about like, what are backlinks and, how do you build backlinks? really general stuff just about it. So then I decided, since every single blog post and every single page ranking was about that exact topic, I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to do a data-driven post that's all about like, are backlinks actually important? Like, do they actually matter for SEO? So then that's what I did. I literally deleted every single word from that old blog post and then just replaced it with this new one that was a completely different concept altogether. And then the rankings shot back up. So that was a very long-winded thing to explain that, but I took that blog post from 7,000 words to 2,000 words.
Got it.
And the rankings went up.
Very cool.
Yeah. So that's it. And I've actually seen that across multiple verticals. Like even with the personal injury lawyer, we cut his content down by a ton. Rankings went up. And now the opposite is also true in some cases. You want to add content in some scenarios. But fortunately you have Surfer to kind of give you that path to, make that decision so you don't have to make it on your own.
Do you think, quick question is, the reason they're kind of switching that is because they want people to get rid of the fluff, essentially, and just get right to like the hard points, because everybody kind of skim reads now. And it's more of just how you said, people got too much fluff and we're driving home like the real points of a lot of articles because it was just a lot of stuff in there. And just how you said, kind of reversing it in a way. I don't know, that I've been noticing that too. I was just kind of just throwing ideas around, and I was like, I wonder if they're just trying to, have people get rid of the fluff in a way and more, drive home the true hard facts and points of, certain topics, let's say.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. In fact, a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're trying to push voice search so much. Because with voice search, the answers have to be fast. They can't be like a 7,000 word article. Like they need to be like one sentence type of thing. So there have been a few SEOs. I'll send you guys what the keyword is after this. I'll need to find it. But this guy that I actually talked to today, he worked for FreshBooks. Have you guys heard of FreshBooks?
I have not.
Okay, yeah. So it's just basically an accounting software. But anyway, they have an extremely authoritative website, and this guy did SEO for them. And so he's always running experiments on their site. And one thing he did is he found a keyword that was like a kind of a question-based keyword. And then what they did is they literally answered that keyword phrase, which was probably 5 to 6 words. They literally answered it with like 2 sentences. They published that blog post and they immediately went into the featured snippet. Like literally 2 sentences and into the featured snippet for a keyword that has like, 100,000 searches a month.
Wow.
That's insane.
So it's showing you that is what Google cares about right now. They want like minimal they want as little content as possible to answer whatever the query is. So
makes sense.
Yeah. So, and it does make sense. Like I totally am guilty of writing long content just because it was the way to manipulate Google at the time. But now it's different. So now my content's getting much shorter. It's getting much more efficient. And so fortunately Surfer can make this a lot easier. And I recommend stacking Grammarly too with this. So like if you guys have your writers, what typically my like content process is to draft the content and then put that content through Grammarly. And then even if you want to take it up another notch, actually put it through Hemingway Writer. And what that's going to do is it's going to force the writers to write really concise content.
Yeah.
I use Grammarly every day, man. I love it.
Yeah. Oh man, it's the best. And I mean, like, I wish I had Grammarly when I was in school. Like, I would have been so much better in school.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of my process. So I do write the draft, put it through Grammarly and Hemingway, and then put it through Surfer.
Okay.
And so if you go through that process, that can really improve the quality of the content.
So for our site, I mean, it's very modular in the sense that we have to have, well, I say we have to have a lot of content on here related to our process, which is pretty much identical for every location. I'm guessing that this content is more closely related to what we would have in our intro paragraph, or right underneath our H2. I mean,
Yeah.
or is there any way we can like keep the rest of the content on there, like our order visit results, why choose us, same day testing, confidential testing, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I would try to be as like literal with these recommendations as possible initially, and then adjust after. So,
Okay.
Just use your best judgment, but it's really going to come down to the intent of the keyword. So like someone searching, STD testing center in Chicago, the intent is they're looking for an STD testing center. So really you guys should be trying to persuade them to use you.
Okay.
As opposed to giving them like data about Chicago STDs, because they probably already think they have one. So they probably don't really need a whole lot of data about it.
Right.
So they're looking for a they're looking for a solution to their problem.
Okay.
So that comes down to knowing like the different types of intent. So, transactional intent, which would be someone searching for an actual STD testing center, versus informational, like, what is an STD?
Okay.
So yeah, you gotta structure the pages based on that. But yeah, just, use your best judgment. So yeah, that's kind of the first thing, is just getting the total word count in the right spot. And I'm sure you can probably easily remove 800 words of probably any fluff that might be on that page or something, or just adjust it to make it more efficient.
Got it.
And then it's going to give you some like HTML recommendations. Since you guys are going to be kind of new to this, I would just be pretty literal with the recommendations. So even if like they seem kind of like they're not going to matter a ton, maybe just do it. So that way you can know that you optimized it to the T, and then you can kind of go from there. So that'd be kind of like the foundation.
Okay.
So, and this is the same thing. It's basically just telling you, where the frequency of exact keywords in the copy and in different parts of the HTML. And one thing you can actually do that's kind of cool is if you just click show details, it'll actually show you where you compare against.
Wow, that is so slick.
Yeah, it really is. It's super cool. So this initial report is basically all about density and word count for the most part. If you want to start to get really granular, you go back to these filter section. You can start to mess around with those and start to see, if you can find any correlations for various things. The only thing that I should mention here is, of course, page loading speed, which is huge. But you guys seem to already have that covered well. So,
what's really strange though is our the Lightspeed tool that Google has consistently ranks us fairly poorly because of like our chat app. Even though the site loads really quickly, that consistently will take up to, well, in Google's eyes, 8 seconds to load. So our actual page speed score averages around 25 to 40. And I remember seeing a post go out on SEJ, I think, mentioning that starting in 2021, your page speed score is going to factor into rankings. Yeah. So, I mean, I see that this tool definitely shows that we've got this is a more realistic representation of how quickly our page loads. But I think Google might be seeing it differently. Do you kind of have any ideas on that?
Yeah, well, that's kind of the dilemma at this point, because you can have a fast loading website and Google can still give you a horrible score.
Right. That's what we're running a dedicated server, and our website is like stupid fast, but Google doesn't see it that way.
Well, really, it's kind of twisted, but Google's really, their end goal, I think, is to get everyone on AMP. That's really what their end goal is. And so the way to get a good score, like I'll just show you, like I moved Gotch SEO to AMP, and I used to have a score of like sometimes below 10, even though I had a fast loading website. Now check this out. I didn't do anything else. I just moved it to AMP. So, and it's literally like, it's ridiculous. 98. What? 98. Desktop 100.
How do you move to AMP? Like, what exactly does it take for you to do that?
Oh, it's horrible.
Oh,
it's like you can't have anything on your website. Like you can't have any scripts. You can't have like any JavaScript. Like it's extremely difficult. You have to have the most lean website to even get this type of score. Like I had to delete so many plugins and find like all these alternatives, and it was a big process. And I'll just give you a little insight into this website. I also have a website that's in the coffee industry. And then my wife's website that's actually in the fashion industry. I moved all 3 websites to AMP. They all increased traffic by at least 20 to even 100% in just like 2 weeks.
Whoa.
That is going to be so difficult for us because we have so much stuff that we actually really need on our site. I mean, the new properties that we're building out, we've made it very clear to our devs that this needs to be a priority for them, no pun intended. And I just don't know how easy it's going to be to retrofit our current site, especially our e-commerce platform. Like it's just loaded to the teeth with JavaScript. So, all right, well, that's something I can dream about.
Yeah, I mean, the documentation for AMP has gotten a lot better. Like a couple of years ago, it was horrible. Like you'd have no chance moving a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. Now it's gotten a lot better. Like they have like special coding just for AMP. And do you guys use Google Tag Manager?
Yeah, we use GTM. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So you have to literally get a completely different property for AMP to be compliant with AMP. It's pretty complicated. But the thing is, the only way I've seen to be able to do it accurately at this point is you have to have an extremely minimal theme like mine. Like mine is as minimal as you can get. And I can get away with that because it's just a blog. But like for you guys, you're not going to be able to really do this. So I think, you need to try to do as much as you can. Try to get that score up as much as you can without AMP, and then maybe just start researching AMP and start messing around with it. Like maybe you guys could create a dummy site and try to see if you could like try to do it. I'm just going to tell you it's hard.
Okay.
It's hard. And I don't know how much you've talked to Rob about it, but yeah, I mean, you basically can't have any scripts.
Yeah. When I read through the documentation a while ago, I was like, how is this even possible? It's just everything gone,
Yeah.
You just live in a box pretty much.
I know. Well, and the thing that's crazy is before I did this, I had tracking codes for Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and even my Drip email provider. And none of them work anymore except for Google Analytics, and Facebook is the only one that supports it at this point. And my Facebook analytics numbers are so off. Like they're not even like tracking anymore. Even though I've set it up for AMP, it's like totally off now. Google Analytics is perfect, of course. So I don't know what Google's trying to do, if they're trying to like squash their competitors or something, but yeah, it's difficult. So not to get too off topic here, but definitely something to think about. Maybe brainstorm that with your devs or whatever, and you create a dummy site or something to mess around with it. Even just getting some exposure to it might be a good idea at this point, because Google is really going to be pushing UX really, really hard.
Yeah.
Coming up. And if just to put it this way, I've been doing this for so long that when Google says something publicly, they're already using it. So if they say in a year from now that they're going to be they've already been doing it.
I got it.
So, it's kind of like how like the military puts out like a new plane. They're like, oh, check out our new plane.
Yeah, like, that you've had for a year now.
Yeah, yeah.
I got you.
Or they've been dropping bombs for 3 years, and now they're telling us about it.
Yeah.
So it's similar to that. So, but yeah, I mean, this initial report, like you're going to have a lot of work to do, obviously. Like,
okay.
Yeah. So you need to do this with every single page. And like I said, just do it with the natural phrase.
All right.
Yeah. And like I said, do it given the time restraints that you have. And I will say the thing that's kind of cool about this is you can actually train someone to do this really well. Like I have someone who works for me. I pay them $27 per hour. They live in the Middle East and they do all this for me.
Oh, wow. So you can outsource this.
Oh yes, 100%.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that would make my life so much easier.
Yeah. So,
Okay,
and you can just
that's
go to, you can
interesting.
just go to, yeah, you can just go to Upwork and find pretty much any SEO person could do this. Now I will say, like, if you're going to do that, make sure that you talk to the person and see that they can speak English fluently at
Mhm.
least. Because otherwise they'll inject words like in an unnatural way, which you don't want. So you want them to be able to, like, take these words and put it into sentences in a totally, like, natural and organic way. If you give them the right instructions and you're detailed about those instructions, they will follow it to a T.
Awesome.
That is what they're so good at. Like, anyway, so do you have any questions about this? I know it's kind of a lot.
No, this is great. I mean, honestly, I think once I like dig into it, I'll probably have some more questions. But like,
Yeah, yeah.
once I get over the initial hurdle and like get comfortable with the UX and everything, I'm sure that I'll be able to plug through this pretty quickly.
Yeah, and like I said, one thing that's important is, like, once you make the changes, I would recommend, Luke, that you or actually, yeah, I would have you actually go through the process of optimizing a page on your own.
Okay,
That way you can see how it's actually done, and then from there it'll be easier for you to explain that to someone else.
definitely. Okay.
So that's one thing I've kind of learned about this. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy for some reason.
No worries.
And then one other thing is just to make sure you refresh after you make the updates.
Okay.
So,
Kind of the way it is.
yeah, well, unfortunately, I think in your market, you have to play, like, the algorithm game, and you have to kind of wait it out until the next core update.
Right. That's what we did last year, and like it was literally a flip of a light switch. All of a sudden, all of our traffic came back, and everything was hunky dory.
Yeah, and we can only hope that happens again.
Yeah.
Some other things here is you can actually look through these tabs, and obviously the best way to learn this is just for you to dive in and do it yourself. But this will just basically show you some keyword variations that you may want to target on that page as well. And
Okay.
like similar to the other one, it will actually show you the relevance. So basically, what it's saying is that the top 10 results mention this particular keyword phrase in one way or another.
Okay.
So that could be an indication that you may want to include a section about STIs as well, not just STDs. And then maybe even talk about, a section dedicated to free STD testing as well, to talk about that. So yeah, you can use these as your sections ultimately, other types of density. So that's basically it. And then the other thing about this tool that you can use that's kind of cool is this content editor. So basically what you can do is you can put this into the editor, and then you can actually edit the content based on the recommendations.
Got it.
So yeah, so if you finish, your analysis with Grammarly and Hemingway, and then have the writer put it through here, you just have them log in and put it through here, and then they can actually go through and optimize it before it even goes live. If you guys are like putting out a new blog post or a new transactional page, for example. So pretty useful, to be honest.
Very cool. This is killer software, man.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I don't get impressed by SEO software very often, but this one is, they've really thought about a lot. Do you have any questions, AJ?
Not really. I mean, I just want to get into it and mess with it and start running some stuff. But it seems amazing, And,
yeah.
I just like how everything's compacted in this one software, and it's how I said before, the UI is just on point because what you said. You get into some of these and they just look terrible.
Yeah,
and
totally agree.
You can't really use them, and this thing has a nice flow to it. That's the first thing I noticed.
Yeah, and that means a lot to me. Like I want it to be simple when I get in there. I don't want to have to like think about like, okay, is this thing going to load today or is it not going to load?
Yeah, exactly.
One other thing I was going to say is how you said it. It's a lot of stuff compacted in one. Well, before this tool, I had to use like multiple tools to get the same data. So like I had to use, I'll actually just show you the tool I used to have to use to find word count. It's this one right here. I'd have to have my feeling. I'd have to have my VA go URL by URL and tell me what the competition is and what the averages are. So just just streamlining that alone is enough to make me pay for this tool. So, but yeah,
gotta piece it together sometimes.
I know. Yeah. So, but it's definitely exciting. But yeah, that's basically it. So.
Cool.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video, and if you learned some things, please like this video and leave a comment below if you have any questions whatsoever. Also, if you aren't subscribed, please subscribe now because I publish new SEO training videos every week. And lastly, if you want to learn more about Surfer, I'll have a link in the description box below this video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.